small compared to most of these other Mothman, sighting reports. But it's her story. She saw what she saw, so she says this thing was maybe about the size of a large raccoon or so, maybe even a bit larger. But really, even being charitable, we'd be looking at maybe 3 or 4 feet long at that point. But anyway, so she felt like she was just frozen solid with her eyes locked on this thing when she saw it. And she even, she said that she found it weird that even with how dark it was outside, it seemed close enough for her to be able to notice details of it to the point where she could see that it was brownish or grayish in color, like brownish grayish, so sort of a combination. And that the wings had like a bat-like look to them. So if you picture the membranous, wings of a bat, that's what its wings look like. And so, she doesn't really know what to make of this thing. It all happened so fast. She said the thing never made a sound, and she never saw it flap its wings. It just glided west and disappeared. And that was the only sighting of it that she had seen. But that's not the only weird sighting that she had in that area. So December of 2017, around 9:30 p.m., this would have been mid-month, and she sees a strange object in the sky. So she says she sees this triangular craft, and she said that she must have seen this thing. She must have watched it for a solid 7 to 10 minutes, and she's by herself, of course, and nobody else was home to see this with her. She's dumbfounded, frankly, because she doesn't really know what to make of this, and it doesn't really do anything other than sort of surprise her and scare the crap out of her. But then we have to consider the fact that after she had seen this, a year later, well, actually not even, I'm sorry, that was December of 2017. Her winged humanoid sighting was January of 2018. So like a month later, she's seeing this weird little winged humanoid flying around her property. So it was just bizarre to see this connection sort of develop, really. And so I dug into it because of course that's a fascinating story, and so I wanted to know more. And she told us that there was a series of lights on this thing. And so it's this triangular craft, and it had one light on each corner of it. And, these lights transitioned from red to blue to green. And she said she saw this white beam of light underneath the craft. And so, I don't know if that represents, maybe some sort of searchlight, something similar. People have reported that before. And it didn't, again, like, I don't think she was necessarily taken, but, she watched this thing for minutes, and then it flew away. And when it flew away, it flew so quickly. It went from barely moving to just gone in a split second. She described it almost as though it had just teleported into another dimension. It was just gone so quickly.
Interesting.
Well, and even, even more interesting to add on to that, that's not even the last time that she had seen it. She saw another series of weirdly lit craft just a few days later. This one, she said she could see, even better. It was about 10:15 at night, and she said that she started to notice what at first appeared to be sort of like those slow-moving Christmas laser light things that people project from their houses. And so she thought maybe it was a house a block over or something, but she couldn't stop looking at these green lights moving around. And, she was actually on the phone with her husband, and she said that she started to sort of lose the excitement in her voice when she was talking about it, because she started feeling weird, like almost uncertain. And so, I should really emphasize that, because that's something we see again and again too, is sort of this feeling of oddity almost, just this weird feeling that seems to come over people. And I don't know if it's just the natural reaction to them realizing that something otherworldly is going on, or if that's just part of the phenomena, because often in sort of like the Mothman sighting specifically, people will be afraid, and they won't even know why they're afraid, because they haven't even seen the monster yet. So they just have this feeling of fear come over them, and then they see something after that. So who knows? Like, this could be sort of related to that phenomenon. But anyway, she said that her husband got really concerned because she just felt completely silent. And she said that she couldn't speak, and she started tearing up. And she, to this day, like, she has no idea why she would start crying. That it was very out of character for her, but she did. And as she's frozen, she's seeing this craft that looks pretty much identical to the previous one. And, the only difference was this time it was rising up, like it had been on the ground, prior to her seeing it. And there's no way that she was mistaking these, or that she was mistaking any airplane for these, whatever they were. She was very, very clear about that. They were triangular craft. She had a good look at them.
Did she say how big they were, the diameter?
No, I don't think that she had a good idea of exactly how big they were. She thought that they were big. I'll just say that. It's so difficult for people, and I actually really appreciate that about this report, honestly, because a lot of times people will try to, estimate the size of an object they see flying. And honestly, I mean, there's almost no good way for people to do that. And so she thought it was pretty big. But, she doesn't know for sure exactly how big it was. I mean, probably best guess might be airplane sized, roughly.
Tobias, did she say, did it make any hum or any type of noise or any headache or anything when she saw it, or anything strange?
Didn't report any kind of noise or anything. Again, like, the strangest thing about it, especially in this second sighting, was sort of her involuntary reaction to it. So, like I said, at first she thinks maybe, it's just some of these Christmas lights or something, because, this sighting was on, it was December 18th was the second one. And so she thinks maybe it's somebody's laser Christmas lights. And I think as she realized, as this craft rose up from the ground, and this is sort of off in the distance, actually, there was a water tower that she said it was off in the direction of. And anyway, so as she sees it rise up from the ground, and she realizes what's happening, is when she starts to kind of lose it. She felt weird before that, but then as she sees it rising up, that's when she starts crying. and she can't talk. Again, she's on the phone with her husband, who has become very concerned. And so, I mean, that was about as weird as that sighting got. But there's an interesting synchronicity here, and I zeroed in on it as soon as we got this in, because she mentioned it. So nearby Wilmington, between Wilmington and Joliet, is the decommissioned Joliet Army ammunition plant, which used to manufacture TNT up until the late 1970s. And so most of that land now is it's a couple of industrial parks, a landfill, a cemetery, and this, and a couple thousand, well, actually more than that, probably 20,000 acres of prairie preserve in there. But what's interesting to me was the proximity of this decommissioned TNT plant. Because if people remember the original Mothman sightings in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, from 1966 to 1967, one of the earliest and probably the most famous sighting of that entity actually occurred at a decommissioned TNT depot outside of town.
Oh, yes.
And so here we are, decades later, hundreds of miles away, a woman, seeing UFOs, a month later, seeing this weird creature, and again, in close proximity to this decommissioned, TNT factory. So I don't even know how that could be relevant, but it was too weird not to notice, frankly.
Well,
that's just bizarre to me.
Tobias, what also is weird, don't forget, at Point Pleasant, too, there were sightings of UFOs. And then the men in black supposedly came. So, I mean, it's like a lot of these, like Mothman or some of these cryptids, there's UFO sightings, just about the same time or right after or beginning, or before, I should say, the sightings of the, cryptic creature. So sometimes I wonder, that these people been abducted and the aliens kind of, scan their brain or already have scanned other people's brains of creatures maybe that might scare a person or they don't want to go and investigate. They want to get away. Could you imagine, instead of seeing an alien, they're projecting a Mothman or a Thunderbird or something like that? Like a Thunderbird could actually be a small UFO scout ship, but they're, projecting it out as a, creature.
Maybe. I mean, and I think that's a really interesting point, actually, because, something you and I have talked about before is with these weird pterosaur sightings or Thunderbirds or whatever, there's just no logical way that there is a breeding population of pterosaurs with 30-foot wingspans living in places like Gary, Indiana. No. Like, it's just, I'm sorry, but there's no way. But people are seeing them. People are reporting these things. People that I have spoken to myself who are normal, credible people are seeing these things. People with nothing to gain by talking about it. And so, yeah, like you have to wonder, knowing that there is just no way that there is a population of these things living in, Gary, Indiana, or I think we had another sighting down in like Arkansas. If that's the case, then what are they? And I think that some kind of screen to disguise something else, that's as good an explanation as any other. The thing I would look for, though, and now that you mention it, I haven't seen this in the husband and wife that I talked to who had the pterosaur sightings near Gary. They did, because I always ask people if they've had any other weird, experiences before or since. They didn't report anything to me that would make me believe that they had been the victims of any kind of abduction,